What is going on, investors? Back again, another stock analysis. This time we're taking a look at an entire sector. We're going to take a look at the gaming sector, more in particular, the casino stocks. So we're going to take a look really quickly at Boyd Gaming. They just reported earnings. It was actually a really positive report that sent the stock up. We'll take a look at Las Vegas Sands. They also just reported earnings. So we'll take a look at that. And then finally, MGM also reported earnings as well. Now, later this week, I think you've got reports from Caesars and WYNN, but I decided to do this now because honestly, I think Caesars and WYNN are going to look like MGM and Las Vegas Sands. And so you'll get the gist of what's going on with these Vegas properties. We'll jump into the stock chart, see if we can find like some levels here. There's some interesting stuff going on in this sector. Obviously, this is a very beaten down sector, and so there might be some opportunity to come in here and buy. First thing, let's talk just broadly about the sector. So what I believe about the casino stocks is the back to normal is not priced in yet. Okay, people are still unsure when and if. I think it's still an if Vegas gets back to normal, particularly the Las Vegas Strip that is so reliant on conventions and tourism and people coming to the Las Vegas Strip to not only gamble in the casinos, but stay in the hotels, to eat at the restaurants, to go to the shows. A lot of that stuff isn't going on. So how much pain will MGM, WYNN, Las Vegas Sands, Caesars, how much are they going to have to survive through in order to turn the corner? I think that's a great question every investor should be asking right now. Like, how much longer? Is it going to be another 6 months? Is it going to be another 12 months? Is it going to be 24 months? How much pain can they actually survive? And I just broadly brought up how much cash these and debt that these companies have. MGM has about $5 billion in cash versus about 11.3 in debt. Caesars has only about $670 million in cash, but only about $3.2 billion in debt. WYNN has $2.9 billion in cash and about $11 billion in debt. And finally, Las Vegas Sands has the most debt, coming in at about $13.8 billion, but they also have $3 billion in cash. Now, first thing I want to talk about is just because a sector is beaten down, like the casino stocks or the airline stocks or the brick and mortar retail, it doesn't mean you need to buy. So I just wanted to make that clear, but it is worth looking into because it might be worth buying. But I see a lot of novice investors, not just these days, but especially these days, they see a stock go down and they think automatically they need to buy that. Get that out of your mind. You're going to become a sophisticated investor, and a sophisticated investor takes a look at things. Now, first thing I want to take a look at here is gaming revenue. And this is obviously what brings in a lot of the traffic into Las Vegas, but also Macau. Most of these gaming companies have exposure to Macau. Take a look at Macau. We'll start back here in March. It was down 79%. Then it was down 96.8%. Then 93.2%. Then 97%. In July, we're still down 94.5% for Macau gaming revenue. That is fallen off a cliff, and it has not come back. In fact, it's gotten maybe a little bit worse. Vegas Strip gaming revenue back in February, you see a more normalized level here. So 0.75% is about what the Las Vegas Strip would gain, in an average month. March, down 45.67%. April, obviously these things were basically closed, 99.3%. May, pretty much closed for good, 99.27%. Finally, June, some of the operations started opening back up, 61.3%. I'd be interested to look at when the July numbers come out. I'll put a link in the description below where I got all this data. Now, let's jump back to here. We'll take a look just really broadly. If you don't want to pick a winner, I'm going to go through Boyd, Las Vegas Sands, MGM, some of the other stocks. If you don't want to pick a winner, don't feel bad. There are ETFs out there, and ETFs can be your friend. This stock chart looks almost identical to MGM's in Las Vegas Sands. This gaming sector ETF, I'm not endorsing it by any means, but it has exposure to a lot more than just the casino sector, but it's an interesting play if you don't want to come in here and pick individual winners. But you're watching a channel like this, I think, to improve your investing skills, and I honestly think you can come in here and pick individual winners. When we take a look at the stock charts, we'll definitely go over that. So first thing is Boyd Gaming. So they reported last week, they did their 3 months ended June here, and their 6 months ended June here as well. Now, what was interesting interesting is the stock reacted very, very positively to these numbers, because when you take a look at them, they're not all that bad. We got revenues, we got total revenues here, and we've got $210 million. Now that's way off from the previous period where we did $846 million, but it's not necessarily that bad. And I think what also was really interesting to investors, we've got total operating costs and expenses down here. It went from 126 down to a loss of $86 million, but that's not that bad, okay? To only have $10 million in revenue and lose $86 million in a tremendously tough environment, not that bad. So Boyd's holding up, unlike some of the other Vegas Strip-centric casinos, because Boyd has a little bit more diversified business model, and they're off-strip, kind of more regional or quote-unquote local casino. So Boyd, when we jump into the stock chart, definitely is performing differently. But what I want to point out with Boyd, the main reason why I have Boyd on here is, so Boyd surprised to the upside. I don't want to say Boyd Gaming is turning the corner, but it's definitely turned a corner sooner than LVS and MGM and Caesars. And look at what their stock did. So we'll dig into that here in a minute. Now, Las Vegas Sands, this is an absolute disaster here. Take a look at this. Look at the casino revenue from the previous period. $2.4 billion, all the way down to a paltry $10 million. I can't believe this. You would have never expected it. If you didn't know what was going on in the world, you'd be like, what the heck happened to Las Vegas Sands? Did the building just collapse or something? Heaven forbid that happens with anybody in there. But take a look. Net revenues previous period, $3.3 billion, all the way down to $98 million. Oh my goodness. And take a look. What I wanted to point out here, just really randomly, is the mall made $42 million and they only spent $11 million. So they made a little bit of money on the mall. But take a look at the casino. They spent $218 million and they made $10 million. Man, that's a disaster. So we've got here down operating income or loss. We've got a loss of $922 million for just the quarter. That's really, really bad considering you made about $900 million the previous period. So, and you take a look at the 6-month view, we made $1.9 billion in the previous 6 months and we lost $867 million. So Las Vegas Sands obviously struggling. Now, jumping over to MGM, paints almost an identical picture that Las Vegas Sands. Take a look, casino revenue, $1.6 billion in the previous 3 months period, all the way down to $164 million. Oh my goodness. I can't believe this. MGM has so many great properties on the strips. I cannot believe this, but obviously it is believable since we know what's going on. $3.3 billion in the previous period, all the way down to $290 million. Now, what you're probably wondering, how much money did they lose? A whopping $1 billion compared to a gain of $371 million. For the 6-month view, we made $741 million in the previous period, all the way down to $216 million. And my guess, this will probably turn to a loss probably for the full year unless miracles start happening. So not very good going on with MGM. Now let's jump into the charts. Like I said, Boyd had a really good quarter, and I think they announced their quarter right in this time frame here where the stock kind of jumped up and gapped up, or it could have been here as well. You might have had some people that were aware of what the report was, and that's what this buying was, and maybe the report came out here and it really popped up. Either way, you've had two nice little gap ups here with Boyd. And so that's what's interesting is this stock was in a defined downtrend. We could have even extended the downtrend all the way to back here. This stock was in a defined downtrend. It made some tops here, retested here. Notice it broke out here and then broke down, but then retested this line right here, and then boom, once it broke out, it's off to the upside. And honestly, this stock, it could stop here at 25, and it could, if it gets past 25, I could easily see it going up to 27. So Boyd's got a lot of momentum behind it. I think you've lost a little bit of this. If you want to jump in here and maybe play the last bid, if you're a trader, I don't know how many people that trade stocks we have viewing the channel. I'm certainly not looking to buy these stocks as a trade. I'm looking for a long-term kind of turnaround trade here. Yeah, this stock could easily get back up into that $25 to $27 range because there's not a lot above this stock that's stopping it, unlike other parts of the chart where we see. Now, what's interesting here is you jump over to WYNN. WYNN chart looks exactly like Boyd's minus the breakout. Okay, so we had the breakout with Boyd. We have not had it with WYNN. So I'm wondering, well, maybe the Boyd gaming chart is a sign that these other casino stocks, when and if things start turning around, could bounce back. Now, what's interesting about WYNN is we've got this nice downtrend where we've tested here, tested here, tested here. The stocks bounce back each time, although we're making kind of lower lows. And so we're in a defined downtrend here. And what's interesting is it could be that this stock retests here at this $70 mark this week. But what could be interesting, if that holds, chances are this stock's going to bounce. Now, if it bounces above this trend line, I would consider that a very bullish thing. This stock could easily come up back into, it could get back up into the $80 range. If you have a really strong move, we have these lows back in here. This stock could get all the way back to 100. That's why I'm excited about these stocks. I see the downside. Yes, this stock could retest this downside. Some bad stuff happens. Vegas doesn't come back nearly as soon enough. I think, yes, easily you could come down here in the $40 range. And so that's why you want to be really careful with these things. But if this trend holds up, this thing's going to bounce and it's going to pop up, and it could be interesting there. Now, MGM also just like WYNN, but also just like Boyd, before Boyd broke out, MGM, notice, boom, we're in this downtrend. Now look here, look at MGM. It's trying to peak up here. So that's what's interesting about MGM is it tested, and then it kind of broke out. So it's actually doing what I'm considering what might happen to WYNN. Notice WYNN hasn't had that breakout. So it could be, and I wouldn't call this a breakout with MGM, but it's interesting that this stock kind of tested these levels for a period of time, and then it's kind of peeked its head out here. So it's kind of interesting. So if this stock wants to come back up to $18 a share, maybe even 20, and then it could retest these highs that it made back here up in 23, I certainly could see that. And obviously, if really things start turning around, this stock could easily get back into that $25, $26 range. That's where I see the opportunity. Now, downside, yeah, you come all the way down here at 11, 10, 11 bucks pretty easily. Either way, these stocks can go either way. That's why, they call it a gamble, I guess. Now, I have Caesars up here. Man, Caesars is kind of like rolling over. There wasn't this really defined trend. Caesars is bouncing around a little bit. It's filled this gap here. It's testing this. Your guess is as good as mine what could happen to Caesars here in the next couple weeks. So, that's why I wouldn't touch Caesars. It could easily come back up here, maybe to the $38, $30 range, but this chart is kind of weird. It could definitely come all the way down, trend down to 20. Personally, I wouldn't touch Caesars at the moment, at least from a chart perspective. Maybe if you jump into the balance sheet, like I said, Caesars reports later this week, and that could be why this chart looks a little funky, is investors are just waiting for that report, although I believe Caesars will look exactly like MGM and Las Vegas Sands with just huge declines in revenue. Now, finally, Las Vegas Sands looking a lot like WYNN chart here, where we made a top. It's making lower tops, but it's been bouncing off this low for a while now. And so this stock could easily come back up in here to this $50 range. That would be interesting. But it could also come down here to 40. So, and it could, further up the ladder, maybe 50, 51. I'm not seeing as bullish signs on this one. Maybe 56. But this stock, I would wait until it kind of really gets above this trend line. MGM's the only one that really kind of started to peak out. But as we saw with Boyd, once Boyd broke out, yeah, it traded sideways a little bit, but then it gapped up again. And so that's what I'm seeing here with these casino stocks. It is kind of interesting from that perspective. Now, let's finally draw some conclusions. So when can you buy casino stocks? For me, like we just went over, the charts have to reverse to the upside. I don't want to jump in front of a moving train. Okay, I want that thing to stop and give me confirmation that I can come on, all aboard, hand my ticket, get in my seat, fire up my laptop, and get ready to go. That's what I'd be waiting for casino stocks. Otherwise, you are just gambling. You might as well just go to Las Vegas and you're going to be able to get a seat at a table and a dice table. You might as well do that if you want to jump in there before you start seeing these charts and the price action return to the upside. Finally, gaming, both in Macau and the Vegas Strip need to start to return. I showed you these stats here. Again, I'll post links in the video below where you can find these. And so I would expect the Vegas Strip July data to come out very soon. And so you're going to see, how did it compare to the 61% drop? My guess is it probably will improve just a little bit, but it's obviously still going to be off by quite a bit. Now, more importantly to these companies, you have shows, you have concert, you have sporting events like the Raiders are moving in right over here off the screen. You can't see it, but the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium is going to be there. When is that going to return? Okay. Are they going to have shows later this year? Are the restaurants going to open? You know, what's going to happen with that? How aggressive is Nevada going to allow these guys to come back online? That's something I would definitely monitor very closely. There's obviously lots of news outlets and ways to follow that. Now, finally, I think the most important thing, but if you wait for this confirmation, I think the stocks will have already run, but this is an incredibly a big part of these casino stocks business is this convention traffic. The reason why convention traffic is so key to these properties is it gives them a midweek bump. So conferences, if you're not familiar in the Las Vegas area, are typically between a Monday through Thursday. Rarely do they carry over into the weekend. They might start on a Sunday, bring some people in, but it's usually a Monday through Thursday type thing. And that allows these casinos to charge insane prices. I've been in Las Vegas in a midweek and have to pay way over $500 a night for a room. Not even like a nice suite or anything like that, because there's a convention going on. And so will this convention traffic come back? Will conventions come back at all? Will they all just cancel next year? Keep in mind, these things have to plan themselves out long ways in advance. And so I'm worried that next year might be kind of soft, even if we get some positive news on the health situation. So there we go. There is the casino sector. These stocks, other than Boyd and maybe WYNN, to me, look like something that you want to monitor closely. Now, if you want to play this sector and you don't feel like picking winners and losers and things like that, you can jump in here and find an ETF. Here's one, BJK, that I have found for you, and you can see the stock has traded sideways, hasn't fallen off a cliff like maybe some of these other stocks. So it's a little bit margin of safety. It's a little more diversified than just the strip casino stocks that I showed you. So there we go. We'll be back later this week with more videos, tons of videos on earnings, real estate, and the works. Thanks for everybody who has subscribed and commented on a video this week. Really appreciate it. We'll see you again soon. Good luck with your investments.